Hi there, I'm John McAdams, founder of the Big Game Hunting blog. And in this video, I'm going to do a detailed comparison of the 6.5 Grendel to the 223 Remington / 5.56 NATO cartridges. Now, I think that most shooters and hunters, but especially those who like using modern sporting rifles, probably agree that the 223 Remington and the 5.56 by 45mm NATO are effective cartridges in certain situations. At the same time, the shortcomings of those cartridges are also very apparent to many people. This has led to the development of cartridges like the 6.5 Grendel that are designed to improve upon the performance of the 223 and 5.56, but still function in an AR platform. Now, the AR platform is currently one of the most popular firearms in the United States and is widely used by gun owners. That is not surprising because the AR platform offers many inherent advantages for hunters and shooters, and this has helped spur continued improvements to the AR-15 platform itself. Now, the popularity of the AR-15 has also resulted in the development of additional cartridges that offer distinct advantages over the 223/5.56 cartridge, while also still functioning in an AR-15. Now, the 6.5 Grendel is currently one of the most widely used of those cartridges. As good as it is, though, the 6.5 Grendel is not perfect, and there are some downsides to using it. So for that reason, this episode is a detailed comparison of the 6.5 Grendel versus the 5.56 and 223, where I discuss the strengths and weaknesses of each one so you can decide which cartridge is best for your particular hunting situation. So first, we'll talk a little bit about the history of these cartridges. The U.S. military began searching for a replacement for the relatively new M14 rifle and 7.62 by 51mm cartridge during the 1950s. They eventually settled on the M16 rifle and the high-velocity 5.56 by 45mm cartridge, which was derived from the 222 Remington. Remington saw the potential for a tremendous commercial opportunity and developed a civilian version of the new cartridge that was extremely similar but not quite identical to the 5.56 NATO cartridge. Formerly standardized with SAMI as the 223 Remington in the early 1960s, the new cartridge was capable of firing a 55-grain bullet at muzzle velocities approaching 3,300 feet per second. Now, the 5.56 by 45mm NATO cartridge had very similar ballistics, and the original 5.56 M193 ball load fired a .224 caliber 55-grain full metal jacket at 3,250 feet per second. Now, unfortunately, the 5.56 by 45mm NATO cartridge and M16 rifle got off to a very rough start in service with the U.S. Army and Marine Corps in Vietnam. Modifications to the rifle and ammunition solved most of the reliability problems that plagued the system during the war. Large numbers of people in the U.S. military still had very serious concerns regarding the stopping power of the little cartridge, though, especially with the new M855 load adopted with the M16A2 rifle. Now, incorporating a new bullet design with a steel penetrator, the M855 load fired a 62-grain full metal jacket bullet at 3,025 feet per second. Now, the M855 penetrates much better than the M193, but complaints about terminal performance of the new 5.56 cartridge from soldiers grew even louder after the new ball load saw use in combat in the 1990s and early 2000s. Now, civilian hunters who adopted the AR-15 and the 223 Remington cartridge during the last couple of decades of the 20th century shared many of those concerns. Now, that rifle and cartridge worked extremely well for predator and varmint hunting and target shooting, but the 223 Remington also developed a reputation for unsatisfactory performance on bigger game like deer. However, the AR-15 platform did offer a number of advantages to shooters and eventually became very popular in the United States. So with this in mind, gun designers with their finger on the pulse of the American hunting and shooting communities understood they were looking at a potentially massive opportunity. Realizing that many people loved the AR-15, as well as the fact that the 223 Remington cartridge was not the best choice for hunting big game, designers set about developing a number of larger bore cartridges that were more powerful than the 223 Remington, but would still function in AR-15 rifles. Among others, this list includes cartridges like the 300 Blackout, the 6.8 Remington SPC, the 450 Bushmaster, the 458 SOCOM, and the 50 Beowulf. Now, Bill Alexander developed the 50 Beowulf as a big bore alternative to the 223 Remington in 2001. He also designed the 6.5 Grendel as a medium bore option in this same market niche in 2002. By modifying a 6.5 PPC case, which is itself descended from the 220 Russian and the 7.62 by 39mm cartridges, Alexander was very successful in building an efficient, accurate, and sweet shooting cartridge that functioned very well in the AR platform. Capable of firing a 120 grain bullet at 2,600 feet per second, the 6.5 Grendel cartridge is also significantly more powerful than the 223 Remington. The 6.5 Grendel cartridge is also extremely versatile and works extremely well for long-range shooting, tactical, law enforcement, varmint hunting, and big game hunting application. Now, the cartridge did initially struggle to gain widespread acceptance in the shooting and hunting communities for a variety of reasons, one of which was the fact that Bill Alexander trademarked the name of the cartridge. However, he relinquished that trademark in 2011 when the cartridge gained SAMI approval, thus allowing other companies to manufacture ammo, barrels, etc., bearing the name 6.5 Grendel. Since then, the 6.5 Grendel has gained traction as an effective hunting round with more and more hunters who appreciate the improved performance it offers over the 223 and 5.56 NATO and have adopted the new 6.5 cartridge accordingly. So let's talk about why that is the case, and we will start with the relative sizes of the 223, 5.56, and 6.5 Grendel. Now, as you can imagine, there are some big differences in the sizes of those cartridges. So first, they use different diameter bullets, .224 caliber for the 223 Remington and 5.56 NATO, and .264 caliber for the 6.5 Grendel. Most 6.5 Grendel ammo typically has bullet weights in the 90 to 130 grain range, with 100 grain, 110 grain, 120 grain, and 123 grain bullets being the most popular. On the other hand, the majority of 223/5.56 factory loads shoot bullets in the 35 to 77 grain range, and of these, 55 and 62 grain bullet weights are by far the most common. Both cartridges are designed for use in an AR-15, which can only accommodate cartridges up to 2.26 inches long. So the 223 and 6.5 Grendel each have the same overall length of 2.26 inches, which is the maximum size that you can use in an AR-15. However, even though the 223 Remington has a longer case, the 6.5 Grendel has a slightly larger case capacity that can hold more powder since it is larger in diameter. Now, on the other hand, the 223 Remington has a slightly higher maximum SAMI authorized pressure of 55,000 psi versus 52,000 psi for the 6.5 Grendel. Those differences in the external dimensions of those cartridges do translate into some very interesting differences in their ballistic performance. This is illustrated when you compare Federal and Nosler factory ammunition. The 6.5 Grendel loads in this case use a 120 grain soft point with a .340 BC and 120 grain Nosler ballistic tip bullets with a .458 BC. Now, Federal produced both of the 5.56 by 45 millimeter factory loads that we're going to talk about here to roughly mirror the performance of the 55 grain M193 ball load with a .246 BC and the 62 grain M855 ball load with a .349 BC. Both of those, like I said, mirror what was and is used by the military. Now, the 223 Remington factory loads use a 62 grain soft point with a .310 BC and 55 grain Nosler ballistic tip with a .267 BC. Now, not surprisingly, there's a significant difference in the bullet trajectories of these cartridges. As you would probably expect, the 6.5 Grendel has a significant edge in terms of kinetic energy at all ranges. Now, with the exception of that 62 grain FMJ bullet used by the M855-556 load, both of the 6.5 Grendel loads use bullets with a higher ballistic coefficient, and the 6.5 Grendel also uses bullets that are about twice as heavy. So the 6.5 Grendel starts off with significantly more energy at the muzzle, between 22 and 73% more depending on the exact load, and this advantage in retained energy grows as the range increases to between 30 and 139% more all the way out at 500 yards. Now, on the other hand, the 223 and the 5.56 loads do have a flatter trajectory with less bullet drop at all ranges. However, with the exception of that 62 grain M855 load, the 6.5 Grendel outperforms the 223 Remington and 5.56 NATO in terms of wind deflection at all ranges. Now, that difference is relatively small with the Federal 6.5 Grendel load, But the 6.5 Grendel has a much bigger advantage with that Nosler load, which has 9 to 12 inches less wind deflection than the other three 223/5.56 loads all the way out at 500 yards. Now let's talk about recoil. Specifically, I compared the recoil produced by hand loads that are very similar to the Nosler 223 Remington and 6.5 Grendel loads when fired from identical rifles. Well, the 223 Remington has significantly less recoil than the Grendel, and depending on the exact load, the 6.5 Grendel has approximately twice as much recoil. And that's really saying something too, because the 6.5 Grendel is a very relatively mild recoiling cartridge itself. Now, all things considered, most hunters should be able to handle 6.5 Grendel recoil without much trouble. That said, the 223 Remington just has an extremely mild, almost non-existent recoil, so the 223/5.56 does have a big advantage in this respect, especially for smaller or more recoil-shy hunters. What about accuracy, though? Now, the 223 Remington in particular has seen extensive use in the hands of competition shooters and has an outstanding reputation in that area. However, the 6.5 Grendel also exceeds in that area as well, and if we're being honest, both cartridges are capable of tack-driving accuracy in the right hands. Though the exceptionally mild recoil of the 223 Remington does give that cartridge an advantage at shorter range, like 150 yards or less, the 6.5 Grendel has a longer effective range and a big advantage at ranges past 200 yards because those heavier and more aerodynamic bullets retain more energy and are less susceptible to wind deflection. So where do we stand with each cartridge? Well, the 6.5 Grendel fires larger diameter, heavier, and more aerodynamic bullets than the 5.56 NATO. The 6.5 Grendel has significantly more retained kinetic energy than the 223/5.56 at typical hunting ranges. However, the 5.56 NATO and 223 Remington have higher velocities, much less recoil, and a flatter trajectory. When comparing these cartridges, it's important to remember that the 6.5 Grendel was designed to offer better performance out of an AR-15 ballistically than the 223 Remington. And as you can see, Bill Alexander was very successful in accomplishing that goal. All told, the 6.5 Grendel is a moderately powerful, mild recoiling, and relatively flat shooting cartridge that's also pretty resistant to wind deflection. This is especially remarkable considering that the cartridge packs that level of performance into a very small package that can still fit into the relatively tight constraints of the AR-15 platform. The 6.5 Grendel is a very good all-around cartridge for those who want to use an AR-15 for deer hunting at short to moderate range. And in addition to hunting, the 6.5 Grendel is also a really nice choice for self-defense or personal protection for people who like the AR-15 platform. And it also has a very good barrel life. The 6.5mm bore diameter is also in something of a sweet spot where it's easier to manufacture very high BC bullets that aren't especially heavy like the Hornady ELD match, and those aerodynamic bullets don't slow down as fast and are more resistant to wind drift. At the same time, the 6.5 Grendel also has a big edge over the 223 Remington and 5.56 NATO cartridges in terms of bullet sectional density. Sectional density is a measure of the ratio of the diameter of a projectile to its mass. All other things equal, a heavier projectile of a given caliber will be longer and have a higher sectional density and consequently penetrate deeper than projectiles with a lower mass and lower sectional density. As an example, 120 grain, 123 grain, and 129 grain .264 caliber bullets have sectional densities of .246, .252, and .264 respectively. This does compare favorably to 55 grain, 62 grain, and 77 grain .224 caliber bullets with sectional densities of .157, .177, and .219 respectively. Now, all things considered, the 6.5 Grendel is simply a significantly more powerful cartridge. It's not a heavy hitter even on the level of cartridges like the .308 Winchester, but it is still completely in a different league from the 223 Remington and 5.56 NATO. Now, in addition to the advantages in bullet sectional density and kinetic energy that we have already discussed, the 6.5 Grendel also uses larger diameter bullets. Consequently, it has about 39% more frontal surface area than the 223/5.56. Now, all other things being equal, a bigger bullet will make a bigger hole, cause more tissue damage, and result in more blood loss. Now, the 6.5 Grendel is also designed to use significantly heavier bullets, which, along with the fact that it generally uses more aerodynamic bullets, helps the 6.5 Grendel carry more energy downrange. Combined with the larger diameter and a more frontal surface area of the bullets used by the cartridge, hunters have a tiny bit more room for error in shot placement when compared to the 223 and the 5.56. And those characteristics are especially helpful when hunting larger game. Make no mistake, the 223 Remington is an outstanding varmint hunting cartridge. Advances in bullet technology in recent years have also made those cartridges much more effective on deer-sized game than they used to be. Lots of people successfully harvest deer with the 223 Remington each year, and the mild recoil of the cartridge makes it a nice option for small-framed or recoil-shy hunters. However, it's also just a plain fact that the 6.5 Grendel is better for deer hunting, if that hunter can place his or her shots appropriately. In my humble opinion, the 6.5 Grendel is not a good choice for hunting any game bigger than deer, though. Now, even though it is significantly more powerful than the 223 Remington, I don't recommend using the 6.5 Grendel for hunting elk, moose, black bear, or other game like that. But like I said, for deer, hogs, etc., it's a great cartridge. Now let's talk about ammo selection. Now, the 223 Remington is currently one of the most popular cartridges in the U.S. When 223 and 5.56 sales numbers are combined, they are far and away the most popular centerfire rifle cartridges in terms of total number of rounds sold. Now, even though the 6.5 Grendel is a reasonably popular cartridge, it cannot compare to the 223 in terms of popularity. Now, even so, there is a decent selection of factory ammo choices for the cartridges. Now, just about every ammo manufacturer produces several different loads of 223 Remington and 5.56 NATO ammo. This ammo ranges from match grade and surplus full metal jacket ammo best suited for work at the range on one end of the spectrum to hollow point, soft point, and ballistic tip ammo designed for hunting and personal protection on the other end. Now, note that full metal jacket ammo is generally not legal for hunting in most states. So while that military surplus 5.56 by 45 millimeter ammo is good for use at the range, I don't recommend taking it afield in search of game. Now, most of the 223 and 5.56 NATO ammo is designed for target shooting or plinking, but companies like Barnes, Federal, Hornady, Nosler, Remington, and Winchester all produce ammo in those chamberings suitable for hunting. Most of this is varmint hunting ammo, like Hornady's Varmint Express and Superformance Varmint lines, Nosler's Varmageddon line, and Winchester's Varmint X line. However, there are a handful of 223 Remington ammo options specifically designed and marketed for big game hunting. For instance, there are both 223 and 5.56 loads in the Barnes Vortex line. Federal offers 223 Remington ammo in their Fusion line, and Winchester produces 223 Remington ammo in their Deer Season XP, Power Max Bonded, and Super X lines. At the same time, 6.5 Grendel ammo is available from Hornady with their American Gunner, Black, and Custom lines, from Federal with their Fusion MSR and American Eagle lines, and Nosler with their Ballistic Tip and Trophy Grade Long Range lines. In particular, Hornady's factory load using a 123 grain SST bullet as part of their custom line is a very popular and effective deer hunting option with the 6.5 Grendel. Alexander Arms still produces 6.5 Grendel ammo, and Wolf also offers a pretty good low-priced full metal jacket option for the cartridge. Now, during normal times, it is usually very easy to find 223 and 5.56 ammo, and almost any gun or sporting goods store will have a really big variety of 223 and 5.56 ammo in stock. Now, while I wouldn't say it is rare, not every sporting goods store keeps 6.5 Grendel ammo in stock, so just keep that in mind. Usually you can find 6.5 Grendel ammo online, though, without a lot of difficulty, but like I said, that's during normal times. Okay, now let's talk about rifles. Once again, the 223 and 5.56 NATO are much more common than the 6.5 Grendel, but there is a good selection of rifles in all three cartridges. Now remember, a rifle with a 5.56 NATO chamber can usually safely and accurately fire 223 Remington ammo, but the reverse is not always true. So many, but not all, gun manufacturers chamber their rifles in 5.56 NATO, so their customers have more flexibility with ammo. Now, the 223 tends to be more common in bolt-action rifles like the Browning X-Bolt, Ruger American, Remington 700, and Winchester XPR. The 5.56 NATO is an extremely popular chambering in AR-15 style rifles like those made by Bushmaster, Noveske, Smith & Wesson, Sig Sauer, Wilson Combat. It's also available in other semi-automatic sporting rifles like the Ruger Mini 14. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule, though, and it's not unusual to find bolt-action 5.56 rifles. For instance, the lightweight CZ527 and the Ruger American Ranch bolt-action rifles are both available in 5.56 NATO. Alexander Arms manufactured the first rifles in 6.5 Grendel and continues to do so. Since then, Wilson Combat and a couple of other companies like Radical Firearms and Brenton USA have also started producing modern sporting rifles chambered in 6.5 Grendel. It is also possible to purchase a 6.5 Grendel upper receiver and convert an existing AR-15 to shoot the Grendel cartridge. Now, the 6.5 Grendel can use regular M16 rifle / M4 carbine magazines with a slight decrease in magazine capacity and sometimes in reliability. A typical 30-round magazine will hold 26 6.5 Grendel rounds. Now, the Ruger American Predator and the Ruger American Ranch bolt-action rifles are both available in 6.5 Grendel. The same goes for the Howa Mini and the CZ527 for hunters who prefer to use a bolt gun. All right, so which one is best for you? Do you primarily hunt medium-sized game like white-tailed deer or feral hogs at ranges within 200 yards? They will all get the job done if you do your part, but the 6.5 Grendel is significantly more powerful, and I strongly recommend using it for hunting deer and game like feral hogs and whatnot instead of the 223 or the 5.56. Now, are you looking for a cartridge to hunt predators and small game animals with? Now, the 6.5 Grendel will work in this role, and lots of people use it for predator hunting. However, I think the 223 Remington is the best choice here because it has a flatter trajectory, ammo is cheaper, and there are just many types of 223 ammo specifically designed for predator and varmint hunting. Now, do you want a hunting cartridge that's well suited for bigger game like caribou, moose, elk, eland, kudu, or red stag hunting? I consider all of these cartridges to be on the light side, and I strongly recommend against using them, but especially the 223 Remington and the 5.56 NATO for elk hunting as well as bigger game, than deer in general. If you had to choose one, though, I would definitely go with the 6.5 Grendel over the other two because it does shoot heavier and larger diameter bullets that carry much more kinetic energy downrange. But like I said, I think even the 6.5 Grendel is too light for that sort of hunting, even though some people do use it for that. Now, do you want a cartridge suitable for self or home defense? All three will certainly work in this regard, but personally, I think the 6.5 Grendel likely also has the edge here as well. Even though it has more recoil than the 223 and the 5.56, it still has a pretty mild recoil that facilitates follow-up shots, and once again, it also just shoots that larger and heavier bullet with more energy. Are you looking for a perfect cartridge to use in a short-barreled rifle? All of these cartridges will lose a certain amount of velocity with shorter barrel lengths, but I still lean towards the 6.5 Grendel here. It does perform closer to its full potential with a shorter 16 to 18-inch barrel, and it loses less velocity than the 223 and the 5.56. What about if you are sensitive to recoil and you need a serious low recoil cartridge? The 223 Remington and 5.56 NATO do have significantly less recoil than the 6.5 Grendel, especially in a lighter rifle. Do you want a round that is better suited for target shooting or so out past 400 yards or so in a precision rifle? All will work and all have excellent reputations for precision shooting, but once again, I do lean towards the 6.5 Grendel for work at longer ranges since they're just much better prospects for high BC match grade 6.5 millimeter bullets. Now, if you enjoyed this video, then please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. Just click that red subscribe button below to make sure you don't miss out on any of my new videos on hunting gear reviews, cartridge comparisons, and more. Now, for more detailed information on popular hunting cartridges and what they're best suited for, click on the link in the description below or go to huntingguns101.com to get a free ebook I have written on the best hunting calibers. Now I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Which cartridge do you prefer? The 6.5 Grendel or the 223 Remington? What game have you successfully taken with them? Let me know by leaving a comment on this video right now. Thanks for watching. Have a great day and good hunting.